Hello, dear comrades. Haven here. I'll be uploading theory videos on this channel from now on. Thank you for tuning in. The topic of today's video will be equality. More precisely, equality as this favorite topic of liberals while criticizing communism. It usually accompanies this idiotic diatribe about how under socialism everyone gets paid the same and consequently there is no motivation for work and for bettering oneself. They very conveniently, I think, forget, the liberals very conveniently forget that the class and economic stratifications caused by late stage capitalism actually does the very thing that they're blaming communism for or socialism for, because the class stratifications obviously demotivate people from improving their own lot, because they realize that the proletariat realizes that the odds are stacked against them, and obviously the bourgeoisie, he's insulated, the big bourgeoisie is insulated by a thick layer of monetary support and money. He owns 5 yachts, 6 airplanes and whatnot. What motivation does he have to do further developments, to do anything? And I think Elon Musk is a big example where initially, though, he did have radical ideas, radical proposals, useful proposals, but now he has devolved into a shill for establishment conservatives, a shill for the most reactionary politics imaginable, and who has not really delivered in the way of any meaningful progress, any meaningful technology in either self-driving cars or renewable energy or what have you. So this is really something. It shows that every liberal accusation against communism is an unconscious admission of their own flaws. That is, besides the fact that socialism and equality are not as linked or not as clearly mutually identifiable as one might think. In fact, when socialists and communists talk about equality, they mean very specific things. And this is something that I'll get into in this video. So if you wish to accompany me to this journey into some of Marx's really burning takes on people who misrepresent his position and who misunderstand what it is about, and not just Marx, I'll also actually I'll mostly quote Engels and Lenin, because this diatribe among liberals against this idea that socialism is about equality and that equality in all respects is something that socialism somehow strives for. And by erecting this straw man of socialism and knocking it down very easily, they pretend that socialism is impossible. Well, this is very old trick, and Lenin actually wrote a very scathing reply to one such liberal professor who spouted the same things that Jordan Peterson talks about. This is weird, but it's real, as to how liberals have not changed. Their attitude, their understanding, the way they misrepresent communism and socialism has not changed one single bit. In our current historical moment, liberals and conservatives are both right-wingers, and we have to understand them as such. If we are to obviously identify left with progress, that is. However, I would later go into some detail as to why the concept of the left has to be revisited, because it has become way too murky, way too nebulous a term that could mean anything and everything nowadays. But that's a topic for a different time. So join in as we explore this topic in greater detail.
Well, what measure of outcome? There's lots of outcomes, like how happy are you? How much pain are you in? How healthy are you? How much money do you have? How much opportunity for movement forward do you have? What's the width of your social connections? Like, what's the quality of your friendships? Do you have exposure to art and literature? Like, you can multiply the number of dimensions of evaluation between people innumerably, right? Because there's all sorts of ways to classify people. You're going to get equality of outcome on every one of those measures?
Let's see what Lenin has to say about this. So basically, there was this professor, a liberal professor, Mr. Tugan Baranovsky, who basically developed a similar argument against socialism, just like Jordan Peterson does in the clip that I've shown. And here's Lenin's reply. It's a pretty interesting reply. Liberal professor Mr. Tugan Baranovsky is on the warpath against socialism. This time he has approached the question not from the political and economic angle, but from that of an abstract discussion on equality. Perhaps the professor thought such an abstract discussion more suitable for the religious and philosophical gatherings which he has addressed. If you take socialism not as an economic theory but as a living ideal, Mr. Tugan declared, then undoubtedly it is associated with the ideal of equality. But equality is a concept that cannot be deduced from experience and reason. This is the reasoning of a liberal scholar who repeats the incredibly trite and threadbare argument that experience and reason clearly prove that men are not equal. Its socialism bases its ideal on equality. Hence, socialism, if you please, is an absurdity which is contrary to experience and reason, and so on and so forth. Mr. Tugan repeats the old trick of the reactionaries, first to misinterpret socialism by making it out to be an absurdity, and then to triumphantly refute the absurdity. When you say that experience and reason prove that men are not equal, we mean by equality in abilities or similarity in physical strength and mental ability. It goes without saying that in this respect men are not equal. No sensible person and no socialist forgets this. But this kind of equality has nothing whatsoever to do with socialism. If Mr. Tugan is quite unable to think, he is at least able to read. Were lie to lake the well-known work of one of the founders of scientific socialism, Friedrich Engels, directed against Düring, he would find there a special section explaining the absurdity of imagining that economic equality means anything other than the abolition of classes. But when professors set out to refute socialism, one never knows what to wonder at most: their stupidity, their ignorance, or their unscrupulousness. Since we have Mr. Tugan to deal with, we shall start with the rudiments. By political equality, social democrats, by the way, social democrats back in those times, the split hasn't yet happened. So, yeah, social democrats includes Bolsheviks inside the party, what would later become the Bolshevik Party. Okay, so by political equality, social democrats mean equal rights, and by economic equality, as we have already said, they mean the abolition of classes. As for establishing human equality in the sense of equality of strength and abilities, physical and mental, socialists do not even think of such things. Political equality is a demand for equal political rights for all citizens of a country who have reached a certain age and do not suffer from either ordinary or liberal professorial feeble-mindedness. This demand was first advanced not by the socialists, not by the proletariat, but by the bourgeoisie. So here we see that Lenin clearly points out that it was the bourgeois revolutions, the French Revolution, that actually put forward the idea of liberty, equality, and fraternity. And this is an important idea because, as we'll show later on, especially in Engels' introduction to Marx's work titled Poverty of Philosophy, which he wrote as a critique of Proudhon's philosophy of poverty, gives a very precise sort of attack against Proudhon's incorrect and a little bit misguided attempt at squaring exchange or an exchange-based economy with socialism. And it's really the beginning of Marx's critique of what later comes to be known as petit-bourgeois socialism. And as we will see, Engels eventually gives a very long and precise description as to where this petit-bourgeois mentality, even within socialists, even within self-declared leftists who support knowingly or unknowingly some variations of petit-bourgeois socialism. So here's the excerpt that I mentioned. It's from the introduction to Marx's Poverty of Philosophy, where Marx actually critiqued Proudhon and petit bourgeois socialist tendencies of his time as inherently unscientific and based on moralizing about things and based on demanding certain things while not realizing that there are other aspects connected to the demands that petit bourgeois socialists are making that would basically in the end hurt their aims.
Justice and equality of rights are the cornerstones on which the bourgeois of the 18th and 19th centuries would like to erect his social edifice over the ruins of feudal injustice, inequality, and privilege. And the determination of values of commodities by labor and the free exchange of the products of labor, taking place according to this measure of value between commodity owners with equal rights. These are, as Marx has already proved, the real foundations on which the whole political, juridical, and philosophical ideology of the modern bourgeoisie has been built. Once it is recognized that labor is the measure of value of a commodity, the better feelings of the honest bourgeois cannot but be deeply wounded by the wickedness of a world which, while recognizing the basic law of justice in name, still in fact appears at every moment to set it aside without compunction. And the petit bourgeois, especially whose honest labor, even if it is only that of his workmen and apprentices, is daily more and more depreciated in value by the competition of a large-scale production and machinery, the small-scale producer especially must long for a society in which the exchange of products, according to the labor value, is at least a complete and invariable truth. In other words, he must long for a society in which a single law of commodity production prevails exclusively and in full, but in which the conditions are abolished, in which it can prevail at all. That is to say, the other laws of commodity production and later of capitalist production. So here we find that Engels justifiably points it out that it's the petit bourgeoisie who believe that labor should be compensated in exact proportion and who believe in the labor theory of value and in essence the equality of the exchange of labor values, so to speak. But they stress this without realizing that both this law and the other laws of capitalist productions are completely interlinked. You cannot have any form of exchange-based socialist system because the laws that allow for the existence of commodity production, allow the existence of all other associated laws, including the law of the tendency for monopolization, the law of the tendency for falling rate of profits. And all of these things cannot be swept under the rug through utopian phraseology. And that is something that we find that Marx is actually criticizing Proudhon for resorting to.
Thank you, viewers, for your attention. We will be working on more theory-based essays and topics and discussions. Please stay tuned. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe my videos and to my channel. And thanks for watching.